Okay, I don't know if you guys are going to see the whole video I just did on what I just done, because I just noticed that the thing said the capacity was over, and I didn't have it on loop. So, but meanwhile, let's talk about two-way radios for a minute, and what's out there and what isn't out there. Now, I'll try to do this without confusing everybody. Let's see, I should have an old bow fan laying around here someplace. Yeah, okay. These are something like the family radios, but they got more power. You don't have to be a ham operator to buy one. Do I have it in here, or do I have it over there? Oh, wait, I have one right here. I can show you. I do. Let me get this one too, if I can get it off. There. All right, so I hope that you can see. There's no monitor on this, so I can't see where you're seeing. I can only take an educated guess. Your family radios are probably going to be the same. You got to unscrew the antenna, because we first have to know the connection. That little thing there is called an SMA. Sierra Michael Alpha. SMA. That is the female. That is the male. Just like anything else. Okay? So that's the male, that's the female. They have SMA adapters. And in this case, you have to know which one you have. Well, in this case, this is the wrong one, because, well, this one here actually works on this radio, because this radio takes both. Okay, so I have my male, and I have the SO239. So the adapter takes it from an SMA .59 is the piece that goes onto that, which is this piece. So let's recap this a minute. Take the antenna off, find out what the connection is. If it's that little connection, that's called an SMA. Then you have to find out if the radio has a male or female on it. Sometimes the radio will have the male and the antenna is the female. But once you determine that, they make adapters for them. The adapter at that point will screw in place of the antenna. So now, if you're working on a frequency, for instance, within the 150 megahertz, that's going to be a VHF antenna. So you can buy VHF antennas, or you can make one. For instance, here's a mount for a trunk mount. There's a surface mount. They have magnetic mounts. I have a few of them as well somewhere around here. So they have different mounts. The mount, here's the magnetic mount. All right. The mount comes with coax, and it'll come with either a PL259. I know, I keep confusing you with that. I'm sorry. This is a PL259. This connector here is an SO239. I'll write that down so you can actually see it, so I won't confuse you every time I say it. In here, I have both. These are SO239 chassis mounts. That's the part that goes on the back of a radio and the antenna screws into it. Then I have PL259s, which the coax goes on, that screws into that part on the back of the radio. And then they have 175 and 176 reducers, depending on the thickness of the coax. The 175 is for a real small. The 176 is for that one that's small but a little heavier. So that's kind of where we're at. And then they have all different types of adapters, elbows and 90s and barrel connectors and whatever. However, let's get back to what we were talking about. Let me find my pad and pencil, because that's what I normally go. Sorry, guys. Frequencies, paper. You don't think I have enough paper laying around here? So is that what you say? And that was a target I was talking about. We can use that one. Okay, let's put this under here. Let's go back over here. And let's talk about this for a second. Okay, so an SO239 is the part that goes like on the back of the radio. Right? Chassis mount. So this is an adapter from a, antennas are sticking to the magnet, from an SMA to SO239. Now regardless, you got to figure out if that's male or female. Now, once you've got that adapter, I know I'm confusing this up completely. Once you have the adapter and you figured it out and you adapted it to this SO239, then you can put any VHF antenna, if you're on VHF, again, in your 150 megahertz range, and that usually goes from like 138 to 174. And if you're on that frequency, which you're going to get better distance on that frequency than you will on UHF, VHF, UHF. UHF is usually up in your 400s, 400 to 500, give or take a few. But you're not going to get the distance out of UHF than you will of VHF. UHF is good for short distance and repeaters like anything else, but basically when you're in a structure, UHF tends to make it through different structures over the VHF. But again, that's another story. That's a whole different thing. So if you're talking on VHF, you're going to get better distance than if you are on UHF. So if you're on that, you can buy any VHF antenna with whichever mount you think you need it on. If you're buying one for the house, it needs to be for the house. You can't buy a mobile one and put it on a house, because that'll give you a bad SWR, which will also end up blowing up your radio. So if you're going to buy one for the house, you got to make sure it's for the house. Any 2-meter VHF antenna will work on these things once you got the adapter. If you're going to buy it for the car, well, then you buy it for the car. There's ways of making the one for the car work on the house, but you have to simulate a car somehow when you put it in the house. Sometimes a big window air conditioner unit may work, but it doesn't guarantee it. And the higher it is, safely, you don't want to go so high that it's not safe, but the higher you are off the ground, the better the distance. But there's also a reasoning there, because you don't want to go so high that you have 100 feet of coax, because your power will drop drastically by the time it gets to the antenna. So sometimes too high is going to defeat the purpose. Wavelength on the antenna can help a lot. Wavelength looks, for instance, if we got a mountain between us, if I take a quarter waves are made to shoot up high and come down short. So, that's basically how that works. If I went with like a 5/8 or a half wave will go high, but not as and farther, not as high. And then the next thing you know, you're cutting where you're just bouncing in. So you have to pay attention to where you're actually going. Quarter wave is usually the norm for VHF 2-meter stuff. So meanwhile, that's where you go with that. You buy the SMA adapter. Now they make them different types. Same adapter, just differently. Here's another one. Now this will not fit this radio because this is the female and that's a female. But they do make these that have a male to SO239, the same connection that we had before. Just that this one has a little wire on it, which sometimes helps because it helps take the strain off the radio mount. So, but like I say, they have all kinds of SMA adapters and connectors to fit whatever you need to fit. Male, female, whatever it is you think you're going to need at that point in time. So that takes care of that if you're going to run a different antenna outside. And these are 5 watts, where the other radios are 1 and 2 watts. So that's also going to help. Then you have the bigger antenna. Now, these you have to pay attention to a little bit because they may make these are SMA connectors too. Okay? Now this one won't fit on that because this radio has the male. This is the female. However, they do make them. However, what they do is sometimes on a dual band, they make the antennas longer, but it's basically to help out the 2-channel, the dual band, which will also help with this. So if you have a dual band radio, like a Bofang, having one of these antennas will increase your distance, as long as you have them on both ends. Because you could be talking like crazy, but if the other guy can't hear you, it's no good to you. So that's kind of how that works. So you can buy a different mobile antenna. Now they rate some antennas in what they call a dB gain. The higher the gain, the better the antenna. So for instance, if you were going to run this in the house and you've seen a quarter wave antenna with unity gain, basically none, or 3 dB gain, and you're running, we'll say, 100 feet of wire, that 3 dBs on the antenna will help increase the signal that you lost in the wire. But they also have 6 dB, 5 dB, 7 dB. So the dB gain means a lot as well. Now I know I'm throwing a lot of numbers out and a lot of things out there. And for those who really know something about radios and antennas are probably going, huh? You know, wait a minute. You know, well, I'm just talking basically for the guys that don't know too much about radios but want to have some idea what's going on out there. And you talk in an everyday term. If I start talking all different technical terms, if somebody doesn't understand those technical terms, they're not going to know what the hell I'm talking about. And I've said that time and time again. You know, so you have to kind of get around to where you think everybody can understand it. So the antenna connectors on most of these radios are called SMAs. And if it unscrews, there's an adapter for you to get you into either an external antenna or a longer antenna without an adapter. Now, an antenna outdoors, we'll say 12, 15 feet off the roof, or not off the roof, but off the ground, is going to talk a whole lot better than an antenna like this inside. The other thing you want to watch out for is if this is the side of the house, I don't want to have the antenna sitting down here because the house is going to stop the signal. We want to either back it up or at least get it above the antenna, you know, around the peak so the antenna is above the roof, because we don't want any obstructions that's going to block the antenna that we just put on there to try to get better distance. Now, I don't know if that makes any or helps you in any way, shape, or form, but again, like I say, they have all different types of antennas, you know, that you can use for this stuff. They have the adjustable ones, which I wouldn't recommend, because if you slide it up and down like an old radio antenna, the next thing you know, you're off frequency, you're going to blow up your radio. Here's another antenna. This will fit my Baofeng and my Wushan, and it'll also fit this one. All right? And this one here is marked on the bottom. I believe this is UHF only. I'd have to get my magnifying glass out, but I think it's, well, let me look real quick. So you want to make sure when you're buying them, yeah, this is for 400 megahertz. 400 to 480 megahertz, that's UHF. When you're buying your antenna, you want to make sure that you're buying it to fit the radio as far as frequency-wise as well. So frequency-wise, you know, you're going to have VHF or UHF or both. And they make antennas for all three. You can buy an antenna for just UHF, you can buy one for just VHF, and you can buy a UHF VHF antenna. So if you're barely making it, and on certain days you're talking, and certain parts of the house you're talking, and you can understand one another about, without going, huh, what was that? Or really trying to listen, shh. Well, then by increasing your antenna, it's going to help you. Or programming the frequency lower, which you can't do on the family radios, because I believe they're just channel. So now with the Baofengs, ham operators do use them, but his battery's dead. Well, that's going to help me a lot, isn't it? So you just want to make sure that you don't go on any of the ham radio frequencies. You want to listen to what's going on around you before you start programming frequencies in there. If you know what the itinerary channels are that you're using on your family radio, you can program that in here. Now, it's like the safety sallies with firearms. Well, I believe in a safety on a firearm. However, there's other ones that say, no, you don't need a safety, you don't need this. And there's other ones saying, if you don't have a safety, it's not. Anyway, there's a lot of opinions on frequency. The family radios, these so-called itinerary channels, are supposed to be limited to 1 and 2 watts. These are 1 watt, 2 watt, 5 watt. You can change the power on them. But who's going to know what power you have on it at 5 watts? You follow me? They're not going to know. So at that point, even though you're illegal, don't worry about it. It's not going to happen. FCC is not going to chase you around unless you're on ham radio frequencies or you're on a frequency that's being used for like radio stations, businesses, police departments. Some of your police and fire and state years ago used to run HF and actually low band. But at that point they graduated up over the years to UHF and then up into the 800 megahertz, into the trunking systems and so on and so forth. But at that point, you know what? I use it. We use it with the fire department. All right, my division, my squad, we have our radios that we use with the town, but we also bought 7 of these Baofengs that we put itinerary channels in that we use if we're doing something that we can't see one another, and if we don't want to use the town radios or the department radios because they may be busy. You know, and instead of us jumping on tack 2 or something, and it's easier just to talk off the side. Nobody knows we're there. Nobody knows we're talking. We're not bothering anybody, and we're talking on these. You know, it's not that big a deal. So to talk on 5 watts on an itinerary channel that's rated for 1 or 2 watts is not going to be a big deal. You can go to a place called RT Systems. Look on their website under handhelds, and then see which ones they offer programs for, because their program is so easy to use. You don't have to worry about going nuts on here. You plug it into the computer, you put the program in, and there it is. You just put the numbers in that you want, hit send to radio, it sends it to the radio, and it's done. Or if you're just going to put a couple in there, go by the manual and just program them in. But you got to know what they are. So get on the internet, look up itinerary channels, or your family radio frequencies. You want frequencies. There's a place out there, I forgot the name of it, but that's all. They have tons of frequencies for the whole country, and you can look anywhere and find out what frequency you want. And then, you know, as long as it's an itinerary channel, which is a non-licensed channel that all these family radios are on, you're going to have no problem. You just got to remember that it's not private. Anybody can listen to you. All right, if that helps you, fine. If it doesn't, let me know, and we'll try to get into a little bit deeper. I'll actually put together a format to follow, so I won't be confusing everybody. Meanwhile, I got to figure out why this isn't charged. I thought I had it in the charger. Oh, here's some of my radios. Now, these radios will get you just about anywhere in the world, but anywhere in the country, guaranteed. Now, over here, whoop. This is what they call a DMR radio. You need a license for this, but I can talk to anybody in the country with that radio. This is a Bofang, which I use it for if the wife and I are around, or she goes out with the boys in the yard at night. I'll turn the radio on in the house, and she'll take one with her. So if she's in the yard and needs me, all she got to do is call. We don't have to worry about telephone bullshit. And I have one out here, as well as she also has one in the house. So there's two in the house, and there's one here, and there's another one someplace. This is the Wushan. Now the Wushan, this one is a class 90. This is not programmable by hand. So I have some of the Coast Guard networks, the Coast Guard frequencies, not the ones you use on the boats, but the ones that we use if we need to go out there for something. We have those on here. This is just 16 channels. You can also buy this and program it with that program. If you call up or look on the line for RT Systems, all they do is sell programs and cables. But you can just program your frequencies into this. This is 5 watts, and turn it on, and you got channel 1 through 16. No digital, no all this other crap. You put in what you want. This is the ones that we bought that we use with the fire department. This is one of their radios. Now, this isn't their commercial radio, which is that one, but this is one that we use if we just want to talk amongst ourselves while on a job, without interfering with the radio or having dispatch hear everything we say. So we use this one for that. Yeah, okay. Want to make sure that they are charging. This is an Alinco. This is another DMR plus 2 meter, so I can use this. This is another ham radio. This one is a Coast Guard radio, but this has federal frequencies in it. It doesn't have your, your channel 16 and all that in there. I can program it in there on the computer, but this is mainly for disaster stuff. And then my town radio for the department, I keep that in the house. Because if I got to run, which we're always running, I'm taking that radio with me. And then over here, if you're interested, this is a ham radio, which they call HF. So I can talk to somebody. Actually, I do. I talk to Charlie a lot and Craig, and they're in like Minnesota and Dakotas and Michigan and Arizona. They're all over the place. So I use that for that. Plus, I was able to modify this one so I can put some of those federal frequencies in there in case I need them, because this is 100 watt, where those are only like, what, 5 watts? This one is a Yaesu. This is one of their cheaper ones, but it works great. This is a HF. So again, I can talk just about anywhere in the country with it, and further. This is a real cheap 25 watt mobile. They cost you like $50. And you can put those itinerary channels in these as well. So if you really want to talk to somebody and you're just about making it now, you put one of these in each one of the houses with a little quarter wave antenna 10 feet off the ground or so outside, and program it with the program from RT Systems, and you'll talk anywhere you want. Really, I mean, they're a good little radio for that. And you can also hook up that if you wanted to ham radio and repeaters and such. But again, it's not a bad little radio. You can't walk around with it, but it's a nice little radio, house to house. Yeah. Actually, I have one of these in the house because at one time my grandkids lived about 4 miles away, and the little handheld family radios wouldn't work. So I put one of these in the house, and they had one in their house, and we used to talk back and forth. You know, again, you're not private, but we do it. And you don't want to, when you're talking that kind of power, you don't want to let you know too much what the location is. As long as they don't know where you are and who you're talking to, their locations, they're not going to know what you're running for power. So, if you know what I mean. You know, like if I had said, if somebody knew my area and I said I'm here, and I give a location, and I'm talking to my grandkids, which are there, and I give a location of them, then they're going to say, how's he doing that with a watt?